Welcome to Fantasy Football. Football is thicker than blood. Week 9. We have a very special guest, two-time champion, current two-time champion, somebody that has been close to me for a pretty long time, and he's been a long-time listener. First time of the year, Jim Bejo. How are you, Dad?
Good, thanks, but occasional listener, I say, and although a two-time winner, four-time Super Bowl participant. So I think I lead the league in Super Bowls.
As Super Bowl appearances, you're saying?
And participant appearances, yes.
Yeah, those are the same thing. Okay, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess. I personally only care about the ones that people win, but if you want to do that, that's all for you. Your team seems to be doing pretty well this year, 4-4, about middle of the pack. How you feeling so far?
You cut out again.
Okay, how you feeling so far about your team?
I have no clue. It's just
you don't pay attention.
A lot of luck. I get a lot of points for, but seems like when I play the teams I need to win against, I get a lot of points against. So middle of the road, but aside from you and Joe, it seems like everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, and I think that Sean obviously making a pretty big trade yesterday. I think I might still be cutting in and out on you, but he, acquiring Andrew Luck and his team, is obviously on the up and up. And if he gets Le'Veon back, his team will be set. I don't know. Did you follow any of that trade talk yesterday? Any of the text message chain? Any of that group messages?
I think I told you I worked the day before, and I woke up at 1 o'clock. There was 104 text messages that I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
I'm thankful I had that group text turned off because I would have been dinged every second. So, I don't know.
So basically,
I can't get along.
Basically, a quick rundown is that Uncle Pat traded a top quarterback for a middle of the road wide receiver and a waiver slot that Uncle Pat believed to be valuable. And some people did not they believed that trade was fair in terms of equal quality of each team, the trade value for each team, and believed that there should be some type of voting into vetoing trades and somewhat of a democratic approach to it, to whether or not trades are allowed to go through. And so there were, there had to be a whole scenario to prove a point, multiple messages going back and forth, nobody really budging on each side, and just people getting more and more mad all over text, making my life harder.
Well, I saw some of the text. The one text that I did see was when Pat said that he had two quarterbacks for a specific purpose. One was to get through the bye week, and once he had the bye week, he was intending to trade that quarterback. So I thought that was extremely reasonable, and I can't fault him for that at all. Then when Joe came home last night after hard days of work, and then going out to wherever they went out to because his boss is leaving, he kind of explained the whole thing to me in summary, and I'd have to blame Colin. It just makes no sense at all. It's the definition of fair is individualistic.
Yep.
You can't have a vote on something like that because everybody's going to vote in their own interest.
Exactly.
I think that was tried and failed
Exactly.
in the first season or two that we had this. It would be nice that common sense would come into play, and I think for the majority of participants it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Colin's got way too much time on his hands. I don't know why he's thinking about this stuff.
Yeah,
so much.
and the other thing is, we clearly have people who have these strong opinions about some of these things that come up, and I don't know. I'm sure Colin might be right in this sense that we tried that, and nowhere did we ever write that it's no longer up for vote. It's just the commissioners now. I mean, everything's been fine under the Jake Bejo regime. It's been going well. And then we have this occasional time when people want to try and cheat the system a little bit or find loopholes, and that's when we have problems because we don't have a written constitution here. I do agree that trade value, is very subjective, and it matters differently to one team than to another team. And we also have like a lot of people who are making opinions and stating how they would do things based on emotions. And honestly, I think that's why I'm one of the better commissioners that we've had, and also the right person for the job, because we might have a lot different things, a lot of different scenarios might have played out had other people been in charge. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Out of the two commissioners, I think Sean did a pretty good job as well. So
yes, and I agree, and I would not be where I am without Sean. He did a fantastic job and laid out the landscape for where I am today. And his team is doing well too. And speaking of his team, let's maybe go into some last week's scores. Jake and Bake dominating Bad Patty, doubling the score, 155-72. Jake and Bake putting up a lot of points for. Uncle Pat hands Joe his second loss of the year, 103-73. Uncle Pat's starting to get cocky, already looking for ring sizes. Scottsdale Dad Bods in a thriller over Dukes of Berkshire, 99-98. Very close. Tony squeaks one out and continues to push. El Jim over C-Mac Attack. El Jim's team continues to be about middle to above the pack, putting up 107 in a big game against Colin that Colin may have needed. Sean Romano, a huge win over a strong Cole McGann Bell team that continues to prove against what Jake might think. And Sean Romano gets a big win and keeps his playoff hopes alive. Joe Romano taking the L hard against Yogurt Merch in our first ever forfeit of the game. Huh? 93-55, Yogurt Merch and Joe Romano both are 4-4. So that brings us to the standings. I mean, obviously we got me and yes.
Can you hold 1 second?
Sure.
Okay. I had to check the sweet potatoes. They aren't quite done, so I have to go back later.
Okay, we're back. So. The Punter Lovers division, we got Jake and Bake and Joe Ventus at the top. And then in the middle of the pack, Scottsdale Dad Bods, Bulletin Board, and Birch, Michigan Vice Fleet, all fighting for that third and fourth slot. With Team Bad Patty seemingly looking like he's going to be out of the playoffs for sure. In the Athletes Minus Gym division, we got Duke of Berkshire at the top, El Jim, Public Enemy and Yogurt Merch all tied, and then C-Mac Attack, Sean Romano. Your divisions, we're gonna have a fight for those last two for some of those playoff spots in both divisions.
Yeah, right. It's like I said, it's aside from you and Joe. I mean, everybody else is pretty much the same record. It's I'm not the last week probably.
Yeah, and even we have Phil's team trying to make a push, tied with Colin's team at 3-5 right now. And, that's a one-game difference. Joe Romano, I mean, we'll get to him a little bit more, but he looks like he might continue to take some forfeits just because he doesn't want to drop players and put a kicker on his team. And so that's always going to be a lot of fun and troublesome for me when he ties and complains about not making the playoffs. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, right now we definitely have the people who I do think though that while there is the middle of the pack where everybody's like kind of even, there are the teams that are they seem to score a lot and have kind of a better lineup than some of those other teams.
I think what really hasn't come into play too much this year, except maybe for the beginning, is injuries. And somebody in, whether it be you or Joe or Sean, myself, somebody's gonna have a major injury that's gonna lead to a downfall. Yeah, right. And we also we can get to even my team, like James Conner, you never know when Le'Veon's coming back. So that's, a huge switch in the running backs. You got Uncle Pat, who's got Leonard Fournette, who's a top running back, who once he comes back, that's going to take out Carlos Hyde and TJ Yeldon, two running backs for Public Enemy number one. Again, great. You never know. And then, Uncle Joe's probably the only one who's going to be out of the playoffs right now, who's definitely looking like he's not going to make it. But if you had to choose one right now in each division, who saying, I guess two in your division and one in the Punter Lovers division, who would you say is gonna miss? Who's gonna miss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go with. I mean, I'd go with Team Bad Patty for sure. In my division, I'd have to say Colin, just because he's trying hard. He's making a lot of changes, but he doesn't seem to have the luck that you need this year.
Well, Colin and who else? Two from each division probably won't make it. I'm not exactly sure. It might be record, but
honestly, probably a toss up between Joe Romano and myself.
really. So you can see Phil's team making a push.
Yeah, for sure. I think that he's got a little bit of momentum on his side, and he had some bad luck at the beginning of the season. It seemed like it's turning around a bit. Again, I think it's going to come down to luck and injuries.
Yeah, and Phil also had the second overall pick, which was Le'Veon, but that hasn't played a snap yet. That's a guy who could be averaging 18 points a game for you is just not playing.
It could be, but he's also in a brand new team, isn't he?
No, he's still on the Steelers. He hasn't signed his franchise tag yet.
Oh, I thought he was traded. Never mind.
And what about from the punter lovers division? What about from the punter lovers division?
Like I said, Team Bad Patty, and I have to choose a second one.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go with one of your favorites because I think he's had some bad luck on his side too. Is Tony, and I think Cole, in a good way, to be public enemy number 2, is going to make a push, and I think he's going to have a good season.
Yeah, and I do want to. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but Cole mistexted or texted the wrong person in the group chat. So Cole, if you want to come out and talk about who you were actually texting, that'd be cool. But he just got out of the shower, so he wanted to let them know that was clearly stated for a specific purpose, if I had to guess. But yeah, Cole. I mean, Cole's team has been pushing well. Phil got a huge win over him last week, but Tony is struggling at running back, so you never know. But let's get into some games right off the bat. We probably got the game of the week, me versus Joe. Almost none of our people have bye weeks. None of the important people have bye weeks. I mean, obviously we got some injuries. I've been going through a lot of running backs this year, and Sonny Michel being hurt I don't like. But for the most part, we're pretty fully healthy, and this is gonna be a close one.
Okay, so what game are we doing first?
Me and Joe.
Okay. Well, it's a tough call. I'll have to go with you just because you seem to put up such big numbers all the time. So.
Yeah, and to an extent though, it's like I don't know. I mean, I do like Mahomes in his offense, and Gurley seems to just be running the whole Rams offense, so that's helpful. But you never know with Connor; he could slow down a little bit and playing a tough Baltimore defense. Obviously, Joe's 2 top players are playing the Rams defense, which, as you know, is the top defense in the NFL right now, or maybe second to the Bears. And just acquired another defensive lineman. Matt Breida is hit or miss, and whether or not he totally plays. Devontae Adams and Jarvis Landry, don't know. I do like some of my matchups in this game as well. I like Mahomes against Cleveland. I like Gurley against New Orleans. And, I think that it's going to be a close one, but I hopefully could pull this. I think I can pull this one out. In a high-scoring game, the battle of 2 high-scoring teams.
No, I think Joe has had the good fortune of having so many teams score low against him. It's an unlikely scenario against your team.
Yeah. We got Dad Bods versus Bad Patty. Bad Patty with his first-round pick, David Johnson, on a bye. I just think that this is going to be a rout for Bad. I don't know if, as much as I think Dad Bods is going to outscore Uncle Joe, I just don't know if Uncle Joe can put up that type of numbers, and I'm going to go with Dad Bods. He's had a tough season, Uncle Joe.
Let me take a quick look. I'm going to pick it upset. I'll take Bad Patty because Trubisky is very hot and cold. He's playing against a very bad team against Buffalo. I think he's going to put up a lot of points. So I'll pick a upset over here and take my brother Joe.
Okay, Uncle Joe's had a tough season. Trubisky's been big. It's at Buffalo though, and Buffalo's defense is pretty good, as bad as their offense is. But I know that defense can turn it over and put Trubisky in some good scoring positions. He obviously needs to pick up a running back to replace David Johnson.
Yeah, I'll put a caveat in there. He has to put somebody in for that bye.
Yeah, and he's got an extra bench spot, so that should be okay. Obviously, Tony's been riding high off two of the top wide receivers in fantasy right now, and Thielen just continues to dominate, and same with Brown. He is hurting a little bit at running back and doesn't have too many good people there, but doesn't seem like he wants to shop either of those wide receivers. But I think that Tony's consistency is going to win him this one. We got Elgin. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No. I said go on to the next game.
Elgin versus Duke of Berkshire. So yourself versus Sean McGann.
I'll take myself.
Okay.
I know John's got a lot of buys this week, and it's going to give him some difficulty. So, I've had the good luck of putting up some big scores periodically, and I think it will continue this week.
Yep, and I like that hidden Ezekiel Elliott in the flex position, but he could obviously do some big damage against Tennessee, and having Saquon out for Sean hurts just because he is such a dominant player. He's one of the top fantasy running backs. Hopkins has been killer. He doesn't have Andrew Luck just yet, even though he did make that nice trade for him. Cortland Sutton will probably be a bigger name just because Demaryius Thomas is now out or has been traded. But I like your team as well. Tariq Cohen's been a big surprise. Keenan Allen has been finding things. Rams defense strong. Though you do have AJ Green in the bye. Maybe Cooper Kupp might be coming back this week. I'm not sure if you're following that at all, but he's obviously a significant part of that Rams offense, and I'm liking your team.
That's the whole thing. You never pick me.
Yeah.
In fact, when you pick me, I lose.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I don't. I think I've addressed that, but it's all right. You don't watch the show.
I listen to it when I walk the dogs.
Oh, good. We got bulletin board material for C-Mac Attack. This is an important game for both teams. I mean, Cole is in that middle of the pack, and Colin is dangerously close to falling to Phil, behind Phil. He's got Kareem Hunt, who's been huge for him. Cam Newton's been putting up numbers. He's hurting a little bit at wide receiver. His running back is Jalen Richard. His other running back is Jalen Richard, who you never know about. Demaryius Thomas could be big, though, now that he's on Houston. Cole's got Odell on bye, which obviously hurts, and it doesn't look like he's got anybody really too good to replace him right now. But the rest of his lineup seems somewhat healthy. I like Colin's team here, though.
I will reluctantly agree with you. Cole has to do something about that bye that Beckham has, and he's been a big number producer for him. So with him out, he's kind of screwed.
Yeah, and Cole's got a lot of guys who've been putting up sneaky numbers. Emmanuel Sanders is another top wide receiver in fantasy football because he's had some big weeks recently. Kenyon Drake's had a couple big weeks recently. That Bears defense, you never know, can put up 25 points against Nathan Peterman and the Buffalo offense. And McCaffrey could, again, he's put us up 17 last week. He's not necessarily averaging the biggest numbers, but if he scores a thing, Cole just can get those additive numbers together and put up some big numbers here and there. And he's been doing that. His team doesn't look the best on paper, but he's been putting up numbers and been getting a lot of hate from some people. I don't know who.
It's kind of hard to believe that if you get Joe Flacco as your quarterback, you're doing that well. So
yeah. Well, he's got Deshaun Watson on the bench. He's got Deshaun Watson on the bench.
But he's as who he has in now, he has
Joe Flacco. Yeah.
Unless he makes some changes, but yeah, I'd have to go with Colin.
Our next game is Joe Romano versus Sean Romano. Joe Romano coming off that loss, the forfeit loss. Phil's team projected 94, a big game for Phil. AP has been big for him. Juju's doing well. Robert Woods. Phil's team making a pretty big comeback. Marlon Mack has had 2 big weeks for him recently, but he's Obviously, he's not playing this week. He's got with a bye. I'm gonna pick Phil's team because I personally don't think that Joe Romano is gonna pick up a kicker, and he might forfeit.
I have to agree with you as well, and I think to give a little bit of shade towards Joe, he's got a tough service that he's on now in general surgery. He's on the vascular service. I know they're giving him a hard time. I don't think he has the time that he needs to put into this. I think it's demonstrated by the fact that he does not participate much in the
group chat,
the texting like he usually does.
Yeah.
So his time is valuable and is minimal, and he probably needs to take care of some personal things during the course of that very infrequent free time that he has. So I just don't think he has the time to devote that he used to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he has been known to go about these weird methods of holding on to people on his bench, and I imagine that he wants to keep most of these people. He'll put Melvin Gordon in at running back. The only two people I can see him wanting to drop are Doug Martin and Baker Mayfield. Maybe Tyler Lockett or Michael Crabtree. I don't know exactly, but I mean, he doesn't add a kicker. It's a forfeit regardless, and that would look great for Phil's team, who's struggling to, or is trying to keep that playoff spot alive.
I think he's on the upswing. I think regardless of who Phil plays, I think he's got a little bit of momentum on his side.
Yeah.
So
I'm taking Phil as well.
He's got 2 games in a row, so
yeah, be big. And then we got Birch, Michigan Vice Fleet versus Yogurt Merch, Uncle Pat versus Nate. Nate has his 2 wide receivers on bye. Not looking good. I mean, he's got 2 replacements ready. So LaShawn McCoy obviously been a disappointment, but James White has been big. Matt Ryan's been big for him recently. What is he? He's the second ranked fantasy quarterback right now. Uncle Pat doesn't seem to be hurt too bad by buys. He used that waiver spot of Sean's to get Aaron Jones, which was probably a good pickup. I know I was going for him, and I imagine that some other people would be going for him just because he probably will be the lone starter for the Packers offense now. So it's probably a good pickup. But he is starting John Brown, who he traded for. Uncle Pat, I like his team here. I do. He's getting cocky already though, talking about championships and how how that ring should get fitted. So I don't know.
I know. He's got that extremely small ring size. I have 2 rings myself that are much larger than that. But for that reason and all the cues that are on his players, somebody has got to fall through the cracks. I'm going to take the upset and go with Yogurt Merch.
Yeah, Nate, yeah. I mean, Nate's got some big hitters on his team. He needs to replace those wide receivers, obviously, but you never know. You could get a touchdown from each one of those guys. This is tough.
He's got a couple people on the bench that have had some good scoring in the past too. So all he has to do is just update his roster and it'll be okay.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah.
I mean, just if the predicted, which are almost always wrong, but are pretty good in his case. I mean, you got to add another 22, 23 points to his score. That already puts him over Pat.
Yep. I mean, yeah, and that'd be a lot. 22, 23 points. You have 11 points per player, and I don't really see that from Marquise Goodwin or Devontae Parker, but I can definitely see 7 or 8. And for a total of like between 14 and 16, that puts him with Pat. I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna take the upset with Yogurt Merch. And
what'd be interesting is if the Giants change quarterbacks this week, to see how much of a difference it'll make in their offense. And the way it goes when somebody new comes in, they pick it up. So could be a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how that applies here because no one has.
It applies in that his second wide receiver that he's going to have to put in is plays for the Giants, Shepard.
Oh well, Shepard's on a bye this week, but yeah.
No,
yeah.
This one is.
Sterling Shepard is on a bye. The Giants are on a bye.
Sterling Shepard
is on a bye week.
Oh, is that what's listed on my? It's not updated on mine. Never mind then.
Yeah.
You're right.
So he'll probably put in Goodwin and Devontae Parker. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the preview, so it's not updated on mine for some reason.
Oh, weird. But yeah, no. Maybe I could look at the preview and see if it does anything. But yeah, just he should.
Never mind. Let's still go with the upset.
Yeah. I am going to take Nate as well. But Uncle Pat, getting cocky, and he's not even comfortably in a playoff spot yet. He still could get knocked out. This is a big week for him and Yogurt Merch. I mean, we're still close, and I still think there's going to be a close fight for the playoffs. We do have a lot of good teams, and I don't think there's and you know how playoffs works. It's anything goes. One person puts up big numbers, and you knock out a top scorer, and suddenly the whole playoffs are different. So I guess no one's safe.
I mean, the playoffs as they are right now are not going to be the way that they will be in the finals. So I mean, one of at least one, if not up to 4 teams that are presently in the playoffs can get knocked out because everything is so close.
Yep, I agree. If you could give us like a quick power rankings, would you be able to do that?
Ooh, I would have to go with you number 1, Joe number 2. Probably Sean number 3.
Yeah.
And the rest are toss-ups.
It's close. I mean, Public Enemy obviously getting hurt with Carlos Hyde getting traded to Jags and hasn't been starting that full lineup. I want to put Tony at like a 4 right now, and Joe Rano or possibly you at a 4 or a 5 as well. And then I think Uncle Joe's team just with bad luck is probably around 12. But even that like 7 through 11 slot, it's close right now. Even though like you could look at teams and say, well, they got this player and they've been consistently scoring more. That doesn't necessarily matter all the time. Uncle Pat's team has not been scoring much, but then again, neither has Phil's team. But obviously, we talked about Phil on the upswing, a 2-game winning streak. Colin, one of those least scorers as well, and same with Nate. Whereas in our division, we do have more of those higher scorers with Tony and. I guess actually no, it's about even.
I think I'm 3rd highest scorer.
You are.
Of the division.
You're 4th.
The other thing that comes into play is that, I can appreciate all the work that Colin did into that evaluation and the Moneyball numbers that he did. Was it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
But the problem is that the Moneyball numbers come into play over the course of an entire season. An individual game, it really isn't as important.
He talked about that.
It's just, these games are so much luck here and there, whether a bye is involved or, somebody gets hurt's involved or somebody is really hot. So it's hard to put power rankings on according to numbers like that. So I go more with the gut feeling than just the pure numbers.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to playoffs, anything can happen. We talked about, Sean's had that 10-3 season where he's got knocked out. Joe came on and talked about how he believes he's has the most points or the most wins of any team all time, and still has. I don't even think if he's been in a championship before.
Or you can go with my first season where I picked Golden Takes. Don't win it all.
Yep, and we're 5-6 that season or something like that. 5-7. 5-7.
It's just where that lucky horseshoes tends to land.
Yeah. So you never know. I am it's gonna be close. It's gonna be fun. We still have a competitive league, and a trade deadline I think is coming up soon. So everyone get those trades in. Try not to make my life terribly harder, and with all this collusion stuff. And we're all adults. Make a trade and make it because you think it's fair, and evaluate it and talk to your people before you make a trade, and don't take advantage of people because that is wrong.
There is no collusion based on the fact that everybody wants to win so much and they're so narcissistic they'll never collude with somebody else in this league.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say never. You never know, right?
Who's going to collude with who? And lastly, I would say that when you said it's a very competitive league, I think it was made more competitive with Nathan and Cole being in there because there's so fewer players that are able to take when you are down somebody. Yep,
I agree. Yeah, it definitely is. And you have those people, and then waivers are mattering so much more now. And not that there have been any huge waivers recently, but having 12 people and the way our waivers work, you got to pick your people right, and everyone's going after the same people. And so, Uncle Pat made a trade for a waiver pick and got Aaron Jones, and I know that Me and probably some other people were going after him as well. So I guess that could end up being really a good trade for him. But you never know. Dad, thank you for coming on. Any closing comments or anything?
Not too bad for somebody who doesn't pay attention to this, huh?
Yeah, right. Or who didn't draft his team. Never drafts his team.
Drafting your team is overrated. It's what you do with the management during the course of the season that counts.
Yeah, to an extent.
Who won 2?
Yeah, you're right. But who's the best team in the league right now?
Ooh, the President's Cup winner very rarely wins the Stanley Cup, so same thing applies here.
Yeah, I guess. Thank you for coming on, Dad. Best of luck, everybody, in week 9, I believe. And we'll see everyone next week.